Is America barreling into another economic downturn? Well, we're going to find out. We don't have a crystal ball, but look, we have tariffs going on that are causing recession panic. We have Apollo that's making a prediction about empty store shelves by June. Are you guys feeling that? Going to the supermarket? Just went yesterday. Orange juice is running out. Not that many fresh fruits, strawberries and some blueberries, some issues in some stores. I got to go to multiple stores. I haven't seen that. In a while. And for my military folks, we have some stuff going on in Ukraine with North Koreans, oddly enough. A lot of my military folks out there still active, still serving, right? This could be of interest to you because you may be going somewhere for some reason, right? But today, look, we're going to dive deep into what is really shaking these markets and our investments, right? All of this connects in the larger picture all the way from macro to micro. So we're going from a larger economic picture, and this eventually makes waves throughout everything, through finance, stocks, crypto, real estate, small business. Every single market is affected by all of the topics that we cover here every single week. So look, if you don't know, this is Military Wealth Club. I'm Mercedes the Military Realtor, and as a service member homeowner that has served in your boots before, I'm here to help you use your VA loan benefits to save you money, energy, and time while you're creating safety and security for you and your family through real estate, right? Real estate is one of the only investments, one of the only assets that you can live in. All right, so there's a benefit right there. And as military, as veterans, active duty, National Guard, reserves, whatever, you may qualify for your VA loan benefit. You should use it. It is an awesome tool. So let's keep going. Look, we have Trump and the tariffs. As we know, tariff. We're getting tariffed out. Look, we're about to slap some 1,000% tariffs on tons of countries. Who knows? No, not seriously, not at all. Look, but we have tariffs right now that are affecting a lot of the economy. We've seen it directly affect the stock market, leading to the stock market. I don't like to say crash, all right? I don't like to say crash, but it has taken a massive hit, and it's a big concern. So right now, tariffs represent a $1 trillion tax increase, so 3% of our GDP, gross domestic product, right? GDP is an important metric. We'll talk about more metrics later, actually, the 5 metrics to look at. These are economic metrics, and these forecast recessions. But let's keep going. So we have JP Morgan estimating 60% likelihood of a recession. All right, I've been telling y'all since 2023, okay, about impending recession coming, some type of slowdown. All right, it's mathematically, historically, there has to be a downturn. All right, let's keep moving. All right, we have the IMF to raise risk of recession to 40%. Okay, IMF. So we have two large entities called in the industry, in banking, in finance, that are calling this. All right, and markets into correction territory. All right, so corrections, they're a movement. They could be upwards or downwards, but some would call them a crash. Some would call them just a slight 10%. Okay, we're getting back to the actual value of the asset or of the stock market, okay? Because you could be very overvalued, you could be undervalued. So when they say correction, it's a movement. It could be up or down towards what people are thinking is fair market value of the entire stock market, all right? So, and the Fed braces for inflationary pressures. Yes, inflation, yes. Why? Because you guys are printing money. That's why we have inflation. You guys are printing money out of the woodworks. Anyways, let's keep it moving. So look, this directly impacts global financial stability. As we know, markets love stability. People don't like not knowing what's going to happen today and what's not going to happen tomorrow. Are they going to get fired and possibly miss their mortgage payments or their car note or their medical payments or whatever it is, right? People, especially in the stock market too, the stock market, people don't know the stock market, but they know that it is cyclical. They know that it can be seasonal. And at least that sets a little framework. And then you have your black swans and your wrenches that come here and there and get thrown in. And that's where people make their money. But when we have the government and the world reacting to our government and other governments as well, That's on a different scale, and markets don't like that. But that's an opportunity for us to swoop in and make investments when things are priced right. Okay, there's a lot of fear. Well, that's possibly a time to be greedy. There's a lot of greed. That's possibly a time to be fearful. All right, so let's keep it moving. Look, could the current trade war escalation permanently alter global supply chains and investment strategies? All right, do we think that what's going on right now, even which it wouldn't happen, but even if he said, actually, guys, JK, let's turn all the tariff off, let's go back to regular trade. Do you think that this would still escalate further? And that's going back a step, and we're absolutely not doing that. He's going full steam ahead. I'm not choosing a side here on if tariffs are positive for us or negative. That's for you to decide. It's just something for us to observe. So if there is further correction or possibly a crash downwards, like I said, if there are some companies that you like, great, make an investment, figure out what your buy price, and buy in. All right, let's keep it moving. So look, like I mentioned, for my military folks out there, there are reports of North Koreans unalived fighting in Ukraine. So what do y'all think about that? You know, I still have tons of folks that are serving active right now, deploying all this stuff, right? I don't necessarily talk to them about a lot of this stuff. I don't press them about it. There's a lot of clearances involved, and I just know to not ask certain things. But look, we have South Korean intel reports that hundreds of North Korean casualties fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. Okay, this is marking a major escalation and raising international tensions. Right now we have North Korea going in there. Okay. Does that mean we're going to take South Koreans? And I don't know. So look, this just heightens global geopolitical risk, because like I just said, well, if we bring South Korea into this, because we already know North Korea, and then there were also some reports about Chinese, maybe not Chinese, maybe it was actually just the North Koreans, and maybe they mistake the Chinese. But look, this could potentially affect your defense stocks. This is how it relates. Right, I'm not just into this to be into this. We have to know how this affects money, because that's why they're over there. All right, it's all the defense companies. We pulled out of Afghanistan, a lot of the Middle East outposts, the bases. We had to put those companies somewhere and generate money somewhere. So that's why we got rockets flying around everywhere. So if you didn't know, so take a look at your favorite defense stocks, pick a few of them, take a look, do some research. I don't know about Boeing. I don't know. It could be Boeing could be a fake. If you know what I'm talking about, Boeing could be a fake out for sure. I don't know if they would really let Boeing crash. A way to tell possibly is looking at the government contracts that Boeing still has, and if they are renewing and making new contracts, that is something to look at. But look, let's think about, does increased North Korean involvement signal a wider geopolitical shift? Yes or no? Right? Do we think another country getting involved? Because now, like I said, if we get South Korea involved or whoever, then we start adding. Or even if they just started adding people to their rosters to send to fight. I've been telling people G7 versus BRICS. I've been telling people, and people want to say BRICS is just an economic alliance. Look, when it comes to economics, that's what it is. It's all about the money, baby. That's all they care about. That's all everyone cares about. So G7 versus BRICS, which BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia. I think Qatar is also working with them, and UAE, and there's probably some more additions as well. And G7 is more of like Japan, Germany, America, the UK, those countries. So 7 of them as well. But it's about picking sides, and you guys see this divide going on with the trade war. Right? China's number 2, is number 1. America's number 1, and China is number 2. But China and Russia, even though they got some beef, they'll team up to fight us, or to at least overcome us and become number 1. So look, let's keep going. We have the Apollo Group predicting a crisis in June. That's just in a few weeks. All right, shelves going to be empty again. We have the tariffs going on. There's a lot of reports about shipping issues. Talk to your truckers. Talk to your folks that work at the ports. Google some of that stuff yourself. Take a look at it. Look, Apollo forecasts severe supply chain disruptions that rival the 2020 crisis by June 2025. So remember what it was like in 2020 when people were going and getting toilet paper, stocking up crazy amounts of toilet paper, and your neighbor over here is using socks and shirts, right? That's just wild. So look, this is due to tariffs blocking shipments from China. Okay, this predicts that empty shelves and economic recession, which severely impacts small to medium-sized businesses. And I mean, the people not even at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, in the middle of the day, whatever time of day and the night, it affects the people. The businesses, I 1,000% understand. I myself am a small business, but the people at the end of the day, that's who I think about. Just the grocery store visits can cripple someone, right? If their grocery bill, think about it. Some people only have food stamps, or some people only have a certain amount of money. Spending $300 at the grocery store every 2 weeks, or every month, $300. Let's say every month. But if the prices go up to now it's $500, or even it's $400, someone may not be able to afford that. So with these supply chain issues, everything goes up. As we saw during COVID, the price of a lot of items at the stores went up, particular grocery stores. But what happened was, after the supply and the logistics issues got solved, the prices didn't go back down. A lot of those companies were like, no, we're not going back down. Oh, it was $4.15 before, and now it's $6.30? Yeah, that's fine. We're going to leave it up. We're not going to go back down. They're still going to buy it. They're already used to it. This is our best chance to just leave the price up. So think about that. All right, so this is extremely critical for us to understand short-term economic risk, because, like I said, even if tariffs were reversed, to get shipping to go back, to spool back up, right, there's a whole lag effect plus more. There was a lag effect for us to get to this point where we're anticipating to feel it soon, right? June. But it's been a lag effect that's building up. So then for it to reverse back, it's not going to be that same amount of time of just several weeks. It's probably going to be double to triple that, honestly, to even get back on track to where we need to be with all the shipments of things coming in. So how do we make some money? How do we make some money from this? Take a look at your stocks. If you have stocks that are in shipping, logistics, or that could possibly suffer right from the tariffs, from stopping of shipments, that is extremely something to consider. Let's keep it moving. Look, I told you guys we were going to talk about some indicators. So we're going to talk about the top 5 recession indicators. Let's get going. Number 1, the yield curve. It's a 10-2 curve. Think about it like that. Yield curve inversion. All right. Right, fancy words, but it's the 10-2. So 10-year treasury versus 2-year treasury. It's comparing these two treasuries. And when they interact in a certain way, that gives us a sign. All right. Oh, man, I got to sneeze. Sweet baby Jesus. Hold up, we got to stay hydrated here because we're about the 10. All right, so the 10-2 measures the difference in yields between the short-term, 2-year, and the 10-year. All right. These are treasury bonds. All right, treasury bonds. You may not invest in bonds, right? They're IOUs from the government. Countries like China and Japan hold tons of them, which that's also an issue. But regardless, these are IOUs, all right, from governments. So when short-term yields rise above long-term yields, so when the 2-year goes above the 10-year, this is an inversion. This inverts, all right. Markets anticipate economic contraction. All right, this signal has correctly predicted every recession since the 1950s. All right, not just the only indicator to look at. All right, that's why we got a list of 5 plus some bonus ones. So stick around. Nearly 100% accuracy since World War II. All right, this typically predicts recessions 6 to 18 months in advance. Now, we had a 10-2 inversion previously, and this was signaling what we have possibly incoming this 2025, 2026, right? Slowdown, recession, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it slowdown. People are scared of the R word, whatever reason. But We're calling this alarm because the inversion happened previously, last year, and 2023, or it possibly went through. But look, it was for a few months, and then it inverted back, which is good, but it did invert. Now, this is considered the single most reliable recession indicator, but we like to take a look at all of them. We can't just look at one thing. Number two, we have unemployment rates. Okay, specifically the rate of change between months. Okay, if we have a drastic change between month 2 and month 3, and then month 4, that can raise an alarm versus just a 0.03% change every month, right? Something to consider. Okay, now this measures the percentage of the labor force that is unemployed but actively seeking work. Okay, that is something to consider. And they do more stats on unemployment as well. People that just filed for unemployment, people that have continuously filed for unemployment. So they have multiple metrics when it comes to this sector here. So historically, a sudden and sustained increase, often defined as an increase of at least 0.5% within a short period, reliably signals an upcoming recession. So unemployment matters. Whether you still have your profession, your career, your job, great. We love it 1,000%. And there are still many others in this country that need employment as well. So we've seen a lot of employment get cut down after COVID. Of course, we had extremely high. We had like 14% unemployment during COVID. And then obviously the levels coming back down. We're in the 4s right now. So it's something to consider, right? We have AI causing tons of layoffs. Just AI, automation, new tech, right? Kind of feels like 1999, thousands, right? We have tech coming in, a big boom, and it's saving companies a lot of money. That's the whole point. They want to cut humans down, employing humans, because it saves them money. That's it, right? The AI boom is great for us consumers. On your phones, on applications, right? On your computer, amazing. But we have to also think about what is that doing to the workforce, right? When it comes to automation. I'm not against automation. What I would like to see is for us to help facilitate training of a new industry for Americans that are transitioning out of positions that are getting basically cut due to automation. Right, we need a transition. We need a training system. We need a pipeline. We talk about we have a shortage of electricians and plumbers and all these things. Okay, well, states and companies and colleges have to train these people. We have to pay to train them. The companies, GE, General, SoCal Edison, whoever, employ people to go to school or make it free. My background is being an electrician when I started in the military. Free education is great. And then don't fight them with the unions. Don't fight people if they want to join unions. Not blah blah blah. You want to be protected. All this stuff, right? There's this huge divide in the blue collar world. Look, these companies should be paying for your education to come work with them. They should be offering you great benefits over there as well. Time off, health insurance, all these things to be an electrician, to be a plumber, to be certified, to be trained, to be a professional. So that's what I think about that. So unemployment, very important. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving. So number 3, the SOM rule indicator. Number 3 indicator here for economic recessions. Okay, so this rule was developed by an economist, Claudia Somm, and this triggers when the 3-month moving average of the national unemployment rate. Don't forget, we just talked about unemployment being number 2 on this list, okay? So when the unemployment rate rises by 0.5 percentage more or more, and it's relative to its lowest point during the last previous 12 months. So 0.5 percentage rise, we have to keep an eye out for that, okay? Now, why does this matter? So unlike the level of unemployment, right, which is often lagging behind, we have to remember these metrics are pulled from previous months and they could lag behind greatly, and they also can be greatly adjusted in the future. People don't know that as well. So the SOM rule focuses on a rapid increase from a recent low. This pattern has historically been a reliable real-time signal that a recession has likely already began, okay? It's designed to identify the start of a downturn, which quickly uses available monthly data. But remember, the data can sometimes lag behind. Okay, now this has a very high accuracy of predicting recession. It helps confirm the start of one in real time, and it's based on historical performance. Okay, all the way back to the 1940s. So that's number 3, the Somme rule. All right, now we're going to go on to number 4. The number 4 economic indicator for recession is ISM manufacturing. So PMI, the Purchasing Managers Index. Sounds like a bunch of jargon, okay? I want you to remember ISM PMI, ISM PMI, ISM PMI, sure. All right, now what does it measure? So this monthly survey of purchasing managers in manufacturing industries assessing new orders, production levels, employment, and supplier deliveries. Okay, this is important. I'll tell you a personal story. 2 years ago, I had a different type of business, I'll say, and I knew one of the suppliers, and I had a long conversation with them, and they gave me insight on what was going on in the industry from the supplier side. He's been in the industry for 15, 20 years. He sells a lot of parts to people. He was selling me some parts as well. We're talking some high-grade electronics. And I'll always remember this. He said, look, if these shops are telling you that they're getting in work how they have been previously, they're lying to you. I'm just letting you know. And that gave me a signal of recession, slow down, and that gave me the light bulb. So look, why does ISM matter, right? ISM PMI, right? Remember that, ISM PMI. So an ISM reading consistently below 50 indicates contraction in manufacturing, okay? Historically, this precedes recessions. You may think of manufacturing, I don't even know, well, what do you manufacture? What, steel beams, axles for cars, right? Look, manufacturing is a wide industry, but it's huge in America. And that's what we're trying to do with the tariffs. We're trying to bring a lot of manufacturing back to America, right? So manufacturing is an important industry that we have to keep an eye out for, and that's why ISM matters, right? ISM PMI, don't forget it. So look, consistently below 50 indicates contraction. We don't like contractions in our economy. So look, this is highly effective for accuracy of recessions. PMI contraction has reliably signaled recessions within 3 to 6 months. Look, number 5 of economic indicators that predict recessions. We have GDI versus GDP, okay? We have gross domestic income and gross domestic product. Those are 2 different things, all right? Let's go over them. So the comparison between 2 of these metrics here, we have GDI and GDP. GDI, income, like I mentioned, GDP, output base, right? So income, GDI, GDP, output. All right, now why does this even matter? Well, look, historically, there's significant divergence, particularly with GDI falling below GDP, right? Income falling, GDP, output, income falling below output. Now, this signals underlying economic weakness and predicts a future downturn. Okay, right? Does that make sense? Your income is falling below the output of what you're producing. What your income, gross domestic income, falls below gross domestic product, which is your GDP is your output. This is a powerful predictive metric which effectively identifies weaknesses and possible recessions. How many times do I gotta say it? 1,000 more times, right? That's why it's number 5 when we're comparing GDP versus GDI. Now, I like GDI. We have to think about income. What are we bringing in for income? You have to think about how does America, I'm not going to say, look, America, a country, yes, but not every country has this system. But how does America, this country, create income? We have GDI, taxes, American taxes. We have to think about that, right? So I would think income is extremely important. GDP, also extremely important. But GDI, I like income. Let's focus on that. Now, we have some honorable mentions here on this list of economic indicators that help predict recessions. We have the death cross. You may think, what is the death cross? What is this death cross? Okay, look, this is a technical chart pattern. We're talking about charts here, where we have the 50-day MA, which is the moving average, crossing below the 200-day MA. Okay, got that? We have the 50-day average. We're talking about MAs, moving averages, crossing below the 200-day. So these are going like this, and then we have them, they start crossing this way, and then the 50-day will cross down below the 200-day. Okay, so it's diving below. Now this indicates negative investor sentiments and potential market downturns. Now this is useful. It often signals bear markets rather than just forecasting recessions. Okay, so recession, bear market, I'm not going to say that they are necessarily the same thing and that they are synonyms. I don't believe that they are, but this is the death cross specifically signaling for bear markets rather than just for recession. So just something to note. Okay, next up, we have another random acronym. Okay, look, the LEI, Leading Economic Index, and this is a composite index combining 10 critical indicators. We have jobless claims, building permits, stock prices. People don't even think about building permits and starts. That can help you forecast, right? I heard that from Ken McElroy. He has a great show and a great conference, Limitless. Go check it out. So stock prices, consumer expectations. So it takes these 10 critical indicators and it's a composite of this index. Now, LEI declines consistently. This signals weakening economic conditions. Okay, so we have a consistent decline, right? Not like our previous indicator where it was more of the rate of change. We have it consistent this way, a consistent decline. That's going to signal weak economic possible conditions. Okay, now sustained negative readings reliably precede recessions. Okay, reliably. That's why we take a look at all these metrics together as a whole. Now, this has successfully predicted all recessions in the last 60 years, usually with the lead of 3 to 9 months. Okay, this kind of matches with our previous metric, which was saying it was a lead of 3 to 6 months. And our previous metric was about 6 to 8 months, right? That's why we like using multiple metrics together. Okay, now we take all these together, and this helps us get a real pulse of the entire market. So you check on these metrics every week or so, right? Coming and watching the show, we talk about some of these metrics as well. You can come get them here. But putting all these together, the numbers don't lie. So look, let's keep going. Military Wealth Club, Mercedes the Military Realtor. Let's keep going. Look, we have the Fed debating shifts, whether to cut rates as the economy falters. We know that Trump has been very critical of the Fed and Jerome Powell. There's been rumors, is Mr. Trump, is he going to fire the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell? Can he even do that? He can't do that, okay? Jerome Powell's already talked about it, but there could be other things that he could do to try to sway things. Jerome Powell seems like he's not going to sway to things, and he really has been just talking about the data, always. Every meeting he's talking about, we have to take a look at the data and go from there. All right, so hopefully he doesn't react rash in either way, right? We need to be worried about the economy, make sure we're not hitting stagflation, deflation, all these other things, right? All right, let's keep it moving. I don't like talking about the Fed too much. It's just beating a dead horse. But they do have a meeting on May 7th, right? And that is what I wanted to show you here. So the Fed does have a meeting coming up May 7th, so just in several days here. And I'm going to show you the current probabilities here. Okay, look, right here. 7th of May is the next meeting date, so just in a few days. Okay, here's the probability. We have a 5.6% chance that we're going to get a cut down to 400 to 425 basis points. You could think about that as 25 basis points. You can think about it as roughly a quarter of a point, maybe right? The Fed rates do not directly connect to mortgage rates. I need you to know that. I talk about that in a lot of my previous videos. Over here, this is our current rate. We're at 425 basis points, 425 to 450, and there's a 94.6% chance as of right now, as of today, that on May 7th, they're not going to call for a change of rates. Now, a day ago, this was 9.2, and a week ago, it was 5.5, and a month ago, 18.5. Okay, so we can see that here. You can come here, CME, Fed Watch tool, just Google it and look it up every day. You can set up an API if you want to, but take a look at this. This is telling us before the probability. It's not for sure, but we watch this and we can have some guesstimates, obviously with our own sentiments and our own analysis. All right, let's keep it moving here. Look, we have China conducting military drills near Taiwan. And as we know, Taiwan makes 90+% of the semiconductors, and it's a huge reason why we're kind of going back and forth with China, right? We have this AI race pretty much, and it's all about these semiconductors, these microchips, the technology that is mostly in Taiwan. And Taiwan is a stone throw away from China. China considers Taiwan China. Taiwan doesn't think that Taiwan is China, so they got beef. And we've had issues because we get our semiconductors from there. We get our chips from Taiwan. Most of the world does, right? So look, China has been doing large-scale military exercises near Taiwan, which is raising international fears of conflict. As we know, right, when I was serving, we had photos. They put photos of the Chinese aircraft and ships and all these other things in the bathroom. So when you're using the restroom, you're looking at Chinese airplanes, Chinese ships. This was 10 years ago. Right, more than 10 years ago. So we've been known that China has been a growing threat, okay? And now they're flexing to take Taiwan. And if they take Taiwan, that's going to cut us off from the possible semiconductor market. Now we have a lot of semiconductor companies willing to come work and manufacture and build here in America. So that is something we're going to continue talking about every single week. But we have more on that later. But look, this affects global market stability, as we know. The stock market has been held up mostly by tech stocks over the last 2 years. We had the Magnificent Seven, Meta, which has Facebook and Instagram, Amazon, Tesla, Google, Microsoft, Apple. They've been holding up the entire stock market. So semiconductors super important for most folks. Like, hey, I'm here to learn about real estate. And said, look, 1,000%, I'm with you, bud. I love real estate. I'm with you. But we have to understand how the macro market can trickle down and then affect real estate. All right, if there's an AI boom, if people are getting laid off because now we have more automation, that could come down and affect real estate in a local market. Now you have a bunch of foreclosures or a bunch of sales where a factory was, right? A manufacturing factory for XYZ, whatever it was. They laid off all the humans, got all the robots, AI, boom. Now that affects real estate. But because you thought, I don't care about stocks, I don't need to know about economics, I don't need to know about macro, micro, what's going on in the world, I just need to know about real estate, you get your head too dug in, and now you're doing a huge 8 single family new construction for whatever reason, but you're not looking at what's going on the large scale of the economy of, oh, we're about to go into a downturn. No one's going to buy these brand new constructions, $750 a pop maybe in this area or blah, blah, blah. You know, whatever it is, all I'm saying is too much micro focus, right? Too much hyper focus takes us away from the bigger picture. So that's why it helps to watch shows like this every single week where we bring all of this information that's spread out, and we bring it straight to you every single week in a way that you can understand. So look, China's conducting military drills near Taiwan. That's important because Taiwan makes over 90% of the world's semiconductors. Semiconductors are, we're going to just say that they're microchips. These microchips do compute, right? Computing, processing, thinking, problem solving is incredibly important. Putting these in cars, or putting these in airplanes, submarines, ships, medical devices, anything and everything. So they're incredibly important, and they're super small, super tiny, but this technology is super expensive and super particular. So it affects us because, like I said, Taiwan creates about 90% of the world's semiconductors, and we need semiconductors, especially in the military, right? A lot of people may just think we want them for AI, for just our computers and personal consumer use. Yeah, but a lot of it is really military use, because with these chips, you can have the brain of 15, 20 people on a chip doing a work, problem solving, or doing XYZ versus a human. So if we have more chips, we have more tech, we have more capability, we have more force, then we could win whatever it is. Us versus China or whoever, if we have more of whatever the main things it is, we're going to win. So let's keep going here. Look, and like I said, that can affect any type of market. Obviously affect directly the stock market, but it can also affect real estate. An example that I just gave right here, where we're talking about AI and automation. If you have some workers at a factory that they get laid off due to automation and AI, and you got 5,000 workers in that area, how many homes do you think are about to go up for sale? How many do you think may foreclose? How many may short sale? How many may sell at a wholesale? Right? Something to consider. All right, let's keep it moving. Man, we have office vacancies hitting a record high as commercial real estate defaults keep going up. People really are ignoring these. Now, we have family offices, which are very wealthy families that come together for investment purposes, and they've been buying up these office buildings, right? Which can have amazing locations. Some of them cannot be converted to residential use, but some of them are looking for a place to park their money, and they would rather do it in an office building in downtown, wherever, where it's just a prime time spot. Eventually they may demo it and then put residential, or they may find another use for it, where a lot of office buildings, I've considered, why not convert it to a data center? I feel like every city is going to have a data center anyways, or going to need one for all that type of processing that's going to be going on in the next 5 to 10 years, right? So we have surging office vacancy rates that threaten financial stability. We've seen it with the defaulting loans growing. A lot of these loans are maturing, and with rates being higher than they anticipated when they were working out the numbers previously years ago, right? This is causing defaults rising and persistent. This is causing these defaults to keep rising. There's a funny comment here, but look, we have to pay attention, even though we're not involved, right? We have to think about, these banks are taking major hits. These investors are taking major hits on these office buildings, on these commercial spaces that are now vacant because of work from home, right? Not all companies have called work from home. Some people have done the math and figured out, actually we're fine. We're possibly more productive doing this, or we have more control because now we're not leasing a space, and now people are staying with us longer because now maybe they can work from home and they have kids, or they have whatever type of lifestyle, whatever it is that they want to do. Something to consider. All right, now this is essential for us real estate investors and the banking sector. Like I mentioned, the banking sector is huge. There's a big bailout that's got to go on. A lot of banks go under, and they're just, big bank takes little bank. They're just getting absorbed by companies like JP Morgan Chase, which could just, yeah, that's fine. We'll take that loss on our books. We'll write that off, and we're going to absorb you, and now we have all your assets in XYZ. So, do we think we're seeing a prolonged, right, over time, a decline in commercial real estate? If I have any folks that are in commercial real estate, right, all types, not just office, but also warehouse and industrial as well, right? Are we seeing something similar to the GFC, the great financial crisis of 07, 08? Are we seeing a slowdown? I don't know, because I'm seeing new construction warehouses going up just down here in southern Denver, like within the last 8 months, 10 months. They've been working on it, but they're up and ready to go. So that's a question. All right, but these are indicators we take a look at that affect all other parts of our markets. So we're talking about commercial right here. Even though this is separate from residential, this could be a leading indicator that then affects something in residential, right? And then you have to know what isn't something bigger, right? Like I said, there's a cannonball, and we're feeling waves throughout all the different sectors: banking, finance, real estate, stocks, small business, medium-sized business. We're feeling ripples in different ways, though. All right, let's keep it moving. Look, man, you guys got me hyped up. Look, NATO. I was about to start talking about NATO, but I do not want to talk about NATO. Look, they conducted the largest military exercises in decades amid what's going on with Russia. Look, I just said I wasn't going to talk about NATO. But look, they're worried. They're feeling pressed because they're feeling like America isn't necessarily gonna really fight for Ukraine. Now, we do have some information on the deal that just got signed. All right, guys, you know that there was a deal between the U.S. and Ukraine, and Russia was doing some things that was possibly delaying the deal going on, and now we have gotten word that the deal has been signed, and we're going to cover some information on that. But look, we have NATO conducting the largest military exercises with what's going on with Russia. They're scared, right? They feel a type of way if America's not going to step in as they thought they were in Ukraine. Well, Europe's got to rearm, and they got to get ready to fight if Putin does decide to keep moving west. Now, my question is, well, where does that put America in all of this? All right, let's keep it moving though. But I like this topic because it relates to defense, and I tell y'all, take a look at your defense stocks. Defense is I feel like they're one of the only players out there, the only stocks, the only companies, the only industry that plays a lot of the both sides. All right, do your research. Do your research, okay? Do your research. Who makes money no matter who wins in a war or in a conflict? Do your research. All right, let's keep it moving. Look, we have a massive power outage that hit Spain and Portugal amid the grid stability fears. Okay, very, very intriguing timing. But look, there's a widespread blackout that has hit the vulnerabilities in Europe with renewable energy transition and grid stability. People thinking, well, we're moving to green, we're moving to these different sources, different types of operation, blah, 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 and boom, we have an issue like this. Then a lot of people want to revert immediately back, and they don't want to try the new, possibly better tech. All right, now, this could definitely, it is affecting energy stocks. Right now, we have to think about this in America. We've had this conversation before, and we pretty much talk about it every week. But the electrical grid, right? What does that look like here in America? Can it handle all this use of AI and computers that we're going to have in the next few years, and more EVs? Trust me, we're going to have way more EVs. There's going to be more electronic items. So is America ready for this? Right? This is just a portion of Europe, not all of Europe. A portion of Europe. Okay. So it's a thought, and it's a fear for a lot of people with how many Chinese products we have in electronics, and how these electronics possibly, if they're in the grid system, could be wired or remotely turned off. Why they could be wired to turn off at a certain time, at a certain date, or with the remote tap-in or something like that. Right? So energy is important to think about. If you own a home, do you have a backup system? Right? Not just do you have solar. Solar is great, but do you have a battery system? How big is your battery system? Do you have a generator along with solar? Where's the generator at? Is it safe? Is it inside? Is it outdoors? Is it vented? Right? Does it get maintenance? How much does it run? How much power does your home need? Do you have an electric stove? Do you have an electric water heater? All right, those are things to consider as well, right? Very much to consider. You have to think about the battery pack, like I mentioned. That's incredibly important. How much power do you actually have? How many days can you live off of this reserve? So something to consider. If you have questions about that, let me know. In my previous life, I was an electrician, so I like a little bit of electricity here and there sometimes. Okay, so let's keep it going. Don't forget, look, the power outage. It's something to take a look at. There's been a warning here in America of a power outage of types or of a cyber attack, right? So be prepared. Be prepared. Please, I'm begging you guys. Take a little bit of your money every month and get some preparation items. Put them away. Stock up, right? MREs, whatever it is you got to do, right? Just have a little reserve. But the one thing I want to make sure that you don't forget is to hit that like and subscribe wherever you're watching. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, MySpace, Neopets, wherever you're watching this from, like and subscribe, follow, whatever it is. I appreciate you coming to even spend 1 second with me. All right, let's keep it moving with Military Wealth Club. Look, the markets rally on a little bit of tariff de-escalation, okay? These are hopes, all right? And we have a little bit of a tech rebound with crypto regulation also changing. You know about that? Crypto's making some moves on the back end quietly, which is very intriguing because they're changing some of the regulations and I feel like making it relax for a reason. Like they're going to do a crypto push, you know, very weird. But the markets did rally a little bit just off of the investor psychology that we may de-escalate with tariffs, right? So as you can tell, the markets are very reactive. It's literally the market sentiment. It's human psyche of everyone, of all the traders together. So if we think, oh, there's a little bit of hope, they're jumping and biting at every single thing that happens out there, right? Trump could sneeze and whoop, all right, we're gonna sell. Oh, we're gonna buy 10%, 12%. All right, they're very reactive. So we kind of have to. I'm not going to say do the opposite of what they do, but you know we got to sidestep and dance in a different way than the majority of the fish. How the majority of the schools swim in, we cannot run the same path that they're going. All right, so a little bit of rally in the markets. Like I mentioned, crypto regs changing a little bit. You should invest in crypto. This isn't financial advice. I'm letting you know, but take a look at crypto, okay? Look, don't say I didn't tell you, because we have Trump's Bitcoin reserve, which I've been telling you for like 2-3 years, like 2 years now. All right, this is sparking a possible crypto effect. Now, look, Trump's crypto reserve policy could significantly influence long-term crypto market valuations. Doesn't it make sense? They're making a crypto Federal Reserve. They're going to stock it up with a bunch of gold, just like Bitcoin, just like real gold, just like the real Federal Reserve. What did they do after that? They made it illegal for citizens to have gold and they had to trade them in. So do you think that may happen with Bitcoin if there's a Bitcoin Federal Reserve where they're trying to stock up as much Bitcoin as possible? And then maybe they give us a USD coin, right? Something like that instead, just how they did in the 1900s, where they gave you a greenback. They gave you pretty much $1 in exchange for your gold, whatever that was, whatever that value. That was scary. I just heard someone say low charge. All right, let's keep. Oh, hold up. We got folks in the chat today. I think we got folks in the chat. Let's see who's in here. Let's see. Dropping knowledge, the idea of recession. See, the idea of recession. Man, this is almost an hour ago. I've been talking for a while. I've been talking. I appreciate everyone in the chat. Chat's going crazy. I appreciate it. Oh man, look, let's show it. Yeah, we got Brenda over here. We got her comment. Hold up. I'm trying to learn this stuff, y'all. Look. We got Brenda, a great lender here in the Denver area. Dropping knowledge as always. Yep. Let's see. We got T. He said the idea of recession is frightening, to be honest. Look, it is, but why? Right? Why is recession frightening for us? I see it as it's a discount. Things are important. That's the thing. It's a small inverse, right? But major assets that make you money are going to go down in price. Okay, frivolous. Okay, let me step back. I did not mean to say that. Not frivolous items. Everyday items and cost of living will go up. It can go up. I'm not going to say it will go up. It can go up. Then you compare that with layoffs, right? Because we have to look at this equation as not just income and expenses. So both sides. You can get laid off and things could get more expensive. Or things could just get more expensive due to inflation, right? Or your hours get cut, or you get completely fired. But I see it as, because we're going to show it again, right? The idea of recession is frightening, to be honest. I see it as an opportunity. If you prepared for it, if you get your mind right, it is not a negative time. A recession doesn't have to be you receding in anything. It could be you actually increasing in your wealth by purchasing assets, because you may be able to find a deal, because someone else may have whatever circumstance, it may sell you a deal because they see it as that's the value of XYZ. And you see a deal, you take an opportunity on it, and you're prepared before the recession and leading in the recession, out the recession, all through the recession, right? You were stacking up cash, or you were putting it where you needed to in order to be available for when the opportunity came, right? That's what it is. Do you have the cash ready when you're at the swap shop and you go to the one vendor that has this amazing rare whatever it is, blah blah blah, and you find it and you're like, oh man, and you go and you put your hand in your pocket and you rummage around and you're like, yeah, and you pull it out and you're like, actually, how much is it, sir? How much is it for the super rare, whatever it is? And the guy says, oh, it's $195, and you pull your money out and you got $7 because you're not prepared for the sale. We're telling you this, the sale is coming. Are you going to be prepared with cash or like assets to be able to grab up these assets at a discount? Whether it's stocks, whether it's businesses, whether it's real estate, whether it's crypto, the whole point. We want to buy it for $5 and we want to sell it for $10 to $15 to $20 to $25 to $30. That is the whole point. It doesn't get harder than that, but we have to be ready. So why does recession look scary? Either inflation is going to go up or you're going to lose your job. Maybe, right? If you're not losing your job, okay, well, inflation may go up. It's not for sure, but inflation may go up. And cost of living may go up a little bit, right? But that squeeze, like I'm saying, is going to cause others to possibly sell assets, the major things that may cost a little bit more to maintain. They may not be able to maintain it anymore due to whatever reason. But that may present a deal to you, and it's a win-win for both sides. We're not taking advantage of anybody here. They identify what they deem as the value of XYZ. You identify the value of it. You come to a deal, and that's it. It's a win-win, though. Both parties have to win. But during a recession, you can win. The question is, are you going to be prepared? All right, let's keep it moving. Let's keep it moving here. Thank you, everyone, for your comments on the video here. We love it. Thank you for coming to the show all the time, all the time. Look, we have Asian economies are pivoting to regional trade amid the U.S. and China trade tensions going on. Right? I would too. That's what's America doing, right? We're going a more nationalistic route, more regional trade route. So that's just what's going to happen. So all your Asian goods, I hope you go and you get them before they all run out. And I hope they don't run out, honestly. I wish that there wasn't a disruption in trade like this. And it seems like a falling out between a lot of other countries as well. Canada has definitely voiced their gripes with us, and that's sad. But let's keep it moving. Look, we have Ford warning of deeper EV losses as demand softens, right? Did you think that EVs were going out of style, or did you think that more people were buying them, right? There's a lot of Teslas out there. I just see them more and more. And at first, I thought it was like the new Toyota or something. I was like, oh, that's a T. That's a new Toyota. No, they didn't like that. The Tesla owners did not like that. But if you see one, be like, is that one of them new Toyotas? No, they'll lose it. They will lose it. They will throw their Jesus sandal at you that they got from REI. All right, so look, Ford, right? Not Tesla, not Rivian. We have Ford warning of deeper EV losses. All right, Ford's trying to make a bunch of EVs. Also Mercedes, BMW, other companies as well. So it's definitely a market. And I see the market actually coming back once our economy changes and we're swinging upwards. People have more money. Things are doing well, right? That's when luxury items come back. You have to think about when COVID was going on right before that, and a lot of Teslas were coming out. And then COVID hit, boom, you have the rates go down a lot. A lot of people got Teslas in that time. Even now, getting a Tesla is relatively easy, or at least leasing one. But look, if Ford is mentioning we have a decrease in demand, that's matching up with recessionary actions of the market. Not just EVs, but EVs are, I'm not going to say on the higher end, but on median, they're more expensive than a regular gas vehicle, right? So it makes sense that they would get cut down because you have your luxury that's going to get cut down. I mean, there's a certain level of luxury that doesn't get cut down because they're just rich anyways. But luxury cuts down, and then the upper scale cuts down, then the medium, then I would say the average, and then below that, right? So it's kind of like a staggered effect. So if EV's up here, of course it's going to have a slower demand because we're hitting recessionary periods. People can't afford a $45,000, $50,000 Ford EV or whatever it is, right? Now, I'm a proponent as a former electrician for hybrids. I believe in hybrids when it comes to the actual resources that's being used and the weight of it. And I mean, mainly the resources, the amount of resources needed to create a hybrid versus what you can actually get out of it as well, and the damage to the environment. I feel like hybrids are the way to go rather than full EVs, right? Wouldn't you want the option to put gas if you could? Especially with what we got with going on with the energy grid and stuff like that. You know, people are desperate for chargers. People are desperate for chargers. That's a business. Take a look at that. Take a look at that. Chargers. Imagine that, right? Think about it. You're going to need chargers like gas stations. Yes, you're going to have a charger at home, ideally. But maybe you can't. But what if HOA says no these types of chargers? And then they have a charger, though, that they rent down the street, a community one, let's say for the entire community, but they charge you for it or whatever prices they want. But they put it in the HOA of the community, no EV chargers in the homes. And if it's in the HOA, it's in the HOA. And not even just the HOA, right? We're talking about deep covenants. Deep covenants. So that's something to think about, right? That'd be pretty messed up if a HOA did that. But maybe I don't know. There were fires, right? They were worried, like in California or wherever. We can't have that because that's too many people having too many high power draws, and that could cause a fire. And this is a high fire risk area, right? Then HOA puts the rule: no more EV chargers. But then they have 50 chargers in the central area of the community, but they charge you double the rate, or whatever the rate is in a quarter, something like that, right? Just something to think about when it comes to EVs. I'm extremely interested in EVs, and I think EVs are going to get more and more popular, like I said, once the market rebounds and America's feeling a lot better and the economy's feeling a lot better, and we're getting those EV resources as well, right? That's a big thing. We have manufacturing come back to America. We have more EV factories, more car factories, more people working, getting skilled jobs doing that. And we have an upswing up. I could definitely see Tesla making a comeback, or whatever company at the time. I'm not going to say necessarily Tesla, but making a full swing upwards at that time, and matching that with them redoing the entire road system for EVs, right? The new markings so that there's less accidents, like less crashes and stuff like that. And then they got you on your phone more. So now you're on your phone more. They're collecting more data, more information. They're selling more stuff to you while you're driving around, right? Safer in a way, but also you're losing control. Control of your car. It can do whatever it wants. It can drive you off a cliff. It could lock you in. It could blah, 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 right? I'm not here to fearmonger anyone, but we trade a lot of convenience for control. We can't forget, we can't trade all of this convenience, right? Just think about your passwords. You got 79 million passwords. You think you remember all of them? Or you probably use Google or whatever to save your passwords, right? And it's FBananaJ37, blah, blah, blah. Right? You don't remember it, though. So good luck if for some reason that didn't work and you were dependent on that to get all your passwords, right? So don't be dependent. Do not be dependent. Let's keep it moving. Look, we have not talked about this. We have UPS cutting 20,000 jobs, right? What does that mean? Does that mean recession? Is that due to automation and AI? Or is it due to tariffs, right, with China? Man, look, we have UPS cutting 20,000 jobs, and this directly impacts, right, from the tariffs. From the tariffs disrupting corporate supply chains, of course, right? All corporate supply chains and logistics around the world. And UPS and FedEx, they run different. I think, if I remember correctly, FedEx runs the East Coast of the US, and UPS runs the West Coast of the US. But this directly affects labor markets, obviously corporate running their numbers, and economic forecasts. People don't realize that too when it comes to shipping, logistics. If things aren't getting there, if the items are not getting there on time or getting there at all, that's a big deal, right? Not just with Amazon. Hey, Amazon's great, but UPS and FedEx as well. We have to consider them. Oh man. And right now we have AI enabling an always on economy, which is interesting, right? Do we want everything to be 24/7 where you can call a service and get someone, may not be the person you need, but get someone, right, 24/7? Well, AI is expanding business productivity dramatically, which is reshaping basically what's normal. And this influences our investment strategy because there's companies that work in this specific, right, that you can specifically invest in, and they do stuff like this. But do we think an AI driven economy is fundamentally going to change the workforce, right? I think a lot of professions and careers think that they're going to get replaced, and I think they will, just not that many. And we really have to look back at the years 99 and 2000 with the tech boom and bust as well, where we have an introduction of technology, but you have to use it as a tool in your toolbox and not just the end all be all, right? You're not going to put a screw in with a set of pliers or a wrench. You're just not. It's a screw. Let's keep it moving. AI, look, I love AI. I just don't want to beat that dead horse too much. Okay, look, but don't, if you know one thing, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe wherever you're watching. MySpace, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Drop it like it's hot. It doesn't matter. Like and subscribe. Watch our show every single week. We bring you information that you need to know for your investments to save you money, energy, and time when it comes to real estate, business, stocks, and finance. I'm Mercedes, the Military Realtor. Let's keep it moving on Military Wealth Club. Man, no, see, I really don't care about that topic right there. I really don't care about that one either. No, not my light. Oh, hold up, y'all. I gotta fix it. See, I was trying to figure out. I heard something make a noise, and I said, "What was that?" And it was the light. All right, y'all. Let's keep it moving. Why 2008? A lot of people think that the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis of 2008, was the scariest thing ever. And look, it was a big deal. It really was. But why was 2008 the perfect year to double down on investments? And that's something for us to really carry into what we're possibly going into this year with the recession, with slowdown, and possibly into 2026 as well. So look, in 2008, the financial crisis highlighted counter-cyclical investment strategies, which means you don't go with the normal cycle of what's going on, because what's going on is, I'm not going to say a random event, and I'm not going to say a black swan necessarily either, but it's not the typical cycle of this is what's supposed to happen. So during those opportunities, it's a highlight because many things can be at a discount. If these assets are now at a discount because someone may be desperate, or the value of things have changed because of economic conditions and consumer conditions, that's what it is. Make a deal and it's a win-win. So in 2008, there were people that were standing by with cash ready to buy. And they did. That's it, period. They did. And they held on to it. They were able to afford it. They were able to pay the taxes, insurance, whatever it is, bring it up to date if they needed to on payments. And they held on to it. And when the market turned around, they're cash flowing it, renting it out, doing whatever it is, right? Or sitting on it and then selling it later. No diddy. Selling it later, appreciation. Okay, appreciation is incredibly important. They could then roll that money over into a 1031 and save some money there, or whatever they want. So look, can the lessons from 2008 be successfully applied today? I 1000% believe so. I listened to Ken McElroy talk about 2008 a lot, and Robert Kiyosaki, and a lot of other older folks. They have the wisdom, right? We have to study the data, but not only the data, listen to the people that went through it, because there's a lot of emotions and memories in data that doesn't present itself. And there's just a lot of things that people really don't know. Like, people mentioned '08 a lot, August '08, that the recession started, but you talk to some folks that were there, that were really in the business, and they could tell you, oh, that was pretty much locked in by '07. By like summer '07, it was locked in, and '08 is just when it finally set in and got out to the news. Right? Think about that. Recessions are usually called about 18 months afterwards from when they really kicked in, actually on the news, and people are finally comfortable talking about it, right? And by that time, we're possibly seeing a turnaround, depending on how long it's going, of course. All right, let's keep it moving. Look, why China is the factory of the world. We really have to think about that. Why over the last pretty much 40, 50 years, we have, I'm not going to say allowed, but we did forfeit a lot of manufacturing for just cheaper price, right? And I really beg for a lot of people to question American companies. You have to look at Americans that wanted cheaper prices. American companies, these corporations that chose, yeah, let me go and get it in China. I can get it in China shipped and all this other stuff and pay customs and tariffs and all this stuff and still get it for half the price than when Bob and Joe can make it down the street. Bob and Joe down the street may have better quality and may be American made, and I'm helping our GDI and GDP here. I'm still going to go over there because they care about the bottom line. So that's just something to think about. It's the corporations that decided to send our manufacturing overseas. So look, recently Tim Cook from Apple, if you don't know, Tim Cook explained China's manufacturing dominance, which highlights global supply chain vulnerabilities. Okay, now there's an important strategic understanding for global trade and economic stability, right? We like stability. Traders like stability. The economy likes stability. At least some type of, I know I'm going in this direction, okay? Now we have to think about, will geopolitical tensions permanently alter China's manufacturing role? So with these tariffs that are going on and China pulling the curtain away from what's going on, if you've seen the fashion TikToks and they're selling tons of off-brand and off-market, but pretty much the same quality items at discount prices, and they're really messing with America right now. They're like, okay, well, we're gonna mess with your luxury goods market because you guys get it all from here. You guys really don't get it from France. It costs $1,500 to make, but you guys sell it for $35K, right? So China's they're playing chess. Trump's trying to play checkers, but China, Xi Jinping, I think his name is, that man playing some chess right now with us. And if you didn't know as well, Amazon was considering putting a little number next to every product showing how much the tariffs have increased it in price. And I guess Trump got word of it and didn't like it, so his man Bezos was like, all right, well, I didn't really want it anyways. Donnie, I didn't really want it anyways. That was a joke. I just mentioned it, but I really, just forget about it. Hey, you want to go golf? That's probably the conversation they have. But look, that's none of my business. Look, all right, we have our rate update. We're gonna dive into this week's real estate and financial market update. Okay, whether you're buying or selling, you always got to keep an eye on the market. At least one, pick one, or you can have both. Or you can just have me keep my eyes on the market and you can do what you got to do. All right, so look, here's what you need to know, and we're going to break it down right here. We have mortgage rates. We have the conventional 30-year fix, which is 6.81. Okay, could be a lot lower, could be higher, depends on your personal profile. Could be a lot lower, could be a lot higher. All right. VA, which I love. I'm a veteran myself. I've used my VA loan. 30-year fixed VA loan, 6.19. Look at that. Over a 0.5%. Over a 0.5% less. Come on. VA loan is the best loan out there, 6.19%. For buyers, rates remain a little volatile day to day. Okay, look, day to day. But locking a rate when you find a property is key. Lock it in, because we don't know what's going to go down. This man wakes up every other day and is like, we're going to tariff the sun, and then who knows what's going to happen. So look, lock in your rate. If you have a property that you want to put an offer in, you got your offer in, Great, everything's going great. Lock the rate in. Awesome. Okay, look, especially for VA buyers, because like I just said, 6.19 for VA buyers. 6.19, come on. And we're looking at 6.81 for conventional. That's what everyone else got. And they don't have 0% down. Come on, guys. Come on, VA. Let's do better. Let's buy properties in this recession. And look, for sellers, current rates impact buyer affordability. All right. So even though this is for sellers, we have to know what's going on with the buyers. All right. And pricing at a competitive price, whether you're working with a realtor or you're doing this yourself, it needs to be priced competitively. That may not be your full market value. It may be above and maybe below it. That's for you to decide. But look, this remains essential as rate fluctuations influence buyer urgency. So as a seller, you use that. For you as a buyer, you know what you have to use that against the seller. All right. So we got to go back and forth. Use that information however you can. A lot of people say, "Oh, it's always a buyer's market. It's a seller's market. It's a this." Look, it's a whatever we're coming to negotiate market. How I think about it, it depends. Because you could say it's a seller's market, but I know that this person's in a pinch for whatever reason, they're distressed for whatever reason, and you could possibly put in an offer and make a deal on that. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Look, let's talk about the Federal Reserve. So the next meeting for the Federal Reserve is May 7th, and right now there's a 4.6% chance of a rate cut. 4.6% chance. Okay? 4.6 that there's going to be a rate cut. So I'm not banking on it, okay? I'm not banking on it at all. Let's keep moving. Let's go over our word of the week, debt to income ratio. So your debt to income ratio, otherwise known as DTI, compares your total monthly debt payments, mortgage, car note, whatever those expenses are, versus your gross monthly income as a percentage, okay? Now, for buyers, lenders are looking at your DTI as a critical measure for your ability to repay the loan, right? If your expenses are just siphoning out and you're not saving any money or making any money, they're not going to cut you a loan, right? Does that make sense? All right, so we want to make sure you're able to repay your debts with a good DTI percentage. Now, they definitely want below 43%, a lot of times under 33%. And the lower, the better that percentage, okay, right? So the higher that percentage, that debt to income ratio, we need to make sure we have a good ratio, all right? And if you don't, that's okay. We'll work on it, and at least we've identified it and we have a plan. But we have to take a look at it and then address it, all right? So that is DTI. Let's keep moving. For Military Wealth Club, let's talk about local metrics here in my local area. Now, don't forget that real estate is hyper local. So a lot of times you'll see stuff on the news of, oh, this is going on, this is going on. That's all right. But depending even down to the zip code, even down to the neighborhood, even a small pocket, right, can act very, very different than what the rest of the market is doing nationwide. And you don't necessarily care what's going on nationwide. You may only care about what's going on in this neighborhood or in this zip code, right? Because they act very different. Markets can be very hyper local. I'm sure you think about, let's say 07, 08, right? Great financial crisis going on, a lot of homes being foreclosed on, a lot of short sales, a lot of issues, right? Now, I can guarantee that there were some neighborhoods and there were some zip codes that didn't see these issues at all, that still did well, sold above or at list price, held their value well, right? Those are really great pockets to be in that can maintain that. It depends on the neighborhood. It depends on the homes there. So that's something to remember, right? Here in our local area, I pulled this for single family homes in particular, especially because single family homes and townhomes and condos, very, very different. So this is just for single family homes, but we're looking at 28 days of median days on market. Okay, so 28, that's the median. So not the extreme. There are some extremes over here on this end and extremes over here on this end. It could sell in 1 day, or it could go in 100 days or 300 days, right? So right here we're talking at 28 days is the median. Now, another great metric is the median percent of closed to list price percentage. So what that means is, what did it actually sell for compared to what it was listed for? Did it sell above what it was listed at or under? So for this metric here, 0.5% means that buyers median on the median of this get 0.5% of a discount on the sales price. So a little bit of concessions for the buyers, possibly something like that. Right now, if it was greater than 100%, that would mean that sellers are getting above asking, and if it was at 100%, that would mean that they're getting exactly at asking. Okay. Now, man, for buyers, right? For buyers, the market is moving fast, especially when it comes to the spring and summertime. You have people that are out of school. There's no snow. It makes it a lot easier to show properties. There's a lot of environmental things. Some places do not get affected by that type of seasonality, but it's common with the spring and the summer. The main thing is the kids getting out of the school. And in the military, we have PCS season. It's when people try to move, and one of the main reasons is because of the kids in school. So the market is moving faster than what it was obviously in the winter, in January, February, but they aren't consistently selling above list price on average. Like I said, with the percentage, we're at 99.5, selling just under. Now this is a median. So that doesn't mean every single house is doing that, okay? This is a median metric. Now, this offers slight leverage compared to crazier periods like the COVID times, but you have to be prepared to act quickly and don't necessarily expect an intense bidding war on every single property. Right now, if there's a slight drop in interest rates, we can definitely see a bidding war go on. We have the next meeting here on May 7th, so that is something to consider. All right, now for sellers, pricing accurately near the market value is crucial. Whether you're working with a realtor or doing it yourself, pricing your property to what the market is and where it's going is incredibly important. As buyers, right, buyers are not generally overpaying. As we saw the last metric, that's why that metric is so important, right? The close to list price ratio. 0.5 in my local area may be very different in your local zip code or neighborhood. Right, but 99.5. So putting this together right here, a well-priced home sells quickly. So price it for what the market is at. Pull your comps of right now. Pull comps of today, and then look forward of where is the market going. And if you've watched our episodes, you watched this episode in its entirety, then you may have a hunch of where I think the market is going. And that's not financial advice for you. But if you set up a consultation, maybe we can talk about it, okay? So look, happy we were able to go over some of these local metrics, and I want you to take a look at your local metrics, okay? What are the median days on the market that properties are sitting? 10 days, 1 day, 28 days, 100 days. What is that number that properties are on the market? And what is the close to list price ratio, okay? That is, if a home is listed for 500K, if someone puts an offer in for 500K, that's sold at the list price, and that means 100%. If they offered under, it would be under 100%. If they offered over, it would be over 100%. But those two metrics are incredibly important for us to really get a gauge of a local area, whatever type of area, zip code, neighborhood, whatever you got, okay? So look, y'all know it's about that time. Please drop a comment below with your comments on all of these topics and what you would like for me to cover next, okay? This economy is changing every single day, and from the micro level to the macro level, we have to have these conversations, and that's why I bring all this information to you so you don't have to rummage through it, right? You got other stuff to do, and I help you save money, energy, and time by providing this free content for you, okay? Look, if you want to schedule a free consultation, not if you're ready to get into real estate, but when you're ready. It's not a question of if, it's when you're ready to actually get started. Let's have a conversation about it. You can visit themilitaryrealtor.us and you can book your free, no obligation consultation to talk to me about real estate. If you're in the military, we can also talk about your career in whatever you got, investments, it doesn't matter. Let's have a conversation. I'm a free resource for you. So look, take care, God bless. And don't forget, ownership is freedom. Take care.